Hello, this is Dr. Anthony Chan, and I want to give you a little bit of an update as to what is going on in the US and in the global economy. Well, we're now in the middle of a global pandemic. No surprise, no secret about that. So what we're seeing is that when you look at other countries like China, where it all began, you saw that they basically shut down a lot of their economy in order to be able to contain this virus and therefore make progress. The good news is that it works. They shut down Wuhan, they certainly shut down the Hubei province, and of course, after a while, after about 2 months, we saw that the flu or the epidemic was basically brought under under control. And now the question is, what is happening in the rest of the world? Well, we're seeing that different countries in Europe, Italy, and here in the United States, we're right in the middle of this pandemic, and we have to slow it down. But the big question is, when we slow it down, what are going to be the implications for the overall economy? I think there's no secret. The economy will slow down. Is it going to be a recession? Is it going to be a depression? Well, I have some news for all of you. The traditional or conventional definitions of recession and depression do not apply. Because when we had the Great Depression, for example, in the United States, guess what? There were a lot of underlying economic problems that had to be resolved before we were going to be ready for economic recovery. Back in the global financial crisis in 2007 and 2008, guess what? There was a lot of financial market bubbles. We had to resolve all that before we could get the economy recovered. But this time around, what is happening is that the US government and many other economies around the world are actually slowing down, or in fact, in many cases, shutting down the economy in order to be able to control the spread of this virus. As we do that, we're going to see that economic growth will in fact slow down and contract. In fact, in this past week, we saw that more than 3 million workers filed for unemployment insurance. And that is just the beginning. We will continue to see week after week people losing their jobs. The economy is slowing down. In the US, we're probably going to see that in the second calendar quarter, we will probably see real GDP contracting anywhere from 15 to 20%. Is that terrible? Of course it is. That is going to cause a lot of pain and a lot of suffering in the US economy, but it is pain and suffering that healthcare experts tell us is absolutely essential to get control of this virus. Now, the good news is that the government is not standing still. We just passed legislation close to 10% of GDP, close to $2 trillion of stimulus on the part of the federal government to be able to throw that back into the economy. Is that going to be enough to basically prevent an economic slowdown? The answer is no. Because in fact, when you shut down anywhere from 30 to 40% of the overall economy, there is no way you're going to get positive economic growth. And even if you give people unemployment insurance, even if you increase the unemployment insurance by even more than you normally pay when there is a situation where someone loses their jobs, if the economy is shut down, you cannot go to a movie theater and watch a movie. You cannot go to a sports arena and enjoy sports. You cannot even go to an airline and fly because people are nervous about this pandemic. In short, the economy is being shut down. And when the economy is shut down, the economy does not grow. And on top of that, we know that there is a lot of liquidity and a lot of credit issues. The Federal Reserve will be adding more than $4 trillion worth of stimulus. The important thing to keep in mind is that this is very different from what we've seen in prior periods. Yes, in the Great Depression, 1929 in the United States, we saw the complete opposite. The Federal Reserve actually cut back on liquidity. The federal government, instead of increasing expenditures to cushion the blow, guess what they did? They cut back government expenditures. So the deepness of this contraction is not going to be like the Great Depression. And in fact, when you saw the period of the Great Depression, you have periods where the economy slowed down, contracted, recovered a little bit, and then went back. But the whole process took over 10 years. This time around, we're basically going to keep the economy shut down until we make progress on the virus. And in fact, we have good news out there suggesting that we're making great progress on antivirals. We're making great progress on developing antibodies through plasma that will be able to allow people to cut down the length of this virus. And on top of that, we have good news On the vaccine front, we have reason to believe that within a year to as little as 18 months, we're going to have a viable vaccine. And in the meantime, these antivirals will allow us to manage the situation with this virus. But having said all that, we're still going to have anywhere from 3 to 6 months of real deep economic pain. We're going to see the unemployment rate increasing dramatically. We're going to see the equity market and the credit markets really getting very nervous. And that is the reason why we see volatility in the equity market very high. That is why we see one day where the equity market goes up 1,000 points. If you look at the Dow Jones Industrial Average, or if you look at the S&P 500, it goes down 8.8%. Another day it goes up 10%. Again, a lot of uncertainty. But the issue here is that the market is very nervous, but we all know that the medical experts are telling us this is a situation that will be handled in the next 6 months, maybe even the next 12 months, but it's not going to last indefinitely. So yes, we're going to have a slowdown in the economy, but the real deciding factor will be whether or not the healthcare sector makes progress in slowing down the number of new infections, because that is the actual metric that financial markets will be paying much closer attention to than any number on employment, any number on industrial production, or any number on the consumer price index. Yes, all those numbers are important, but nothing will be more important than the healthcare statistics that will gauge whether we're making progress on this virus. I look forward to talking